everyone, and welcome back to my channel True Crime and Trials, where I discuss true crime and trials. And today is day 10 of the Derek Chauvin trial. It's been such a long week. I'm glad for the weekend break. So first up is the forensic pathologist, and they show George's death certificate, which says the cause of death is cardiopulmonary arrest, complicating law enforcement subdual, restraint and neck compression, and the mechanism of death is asphyxia. The mechanism means what was going on in the body at the time. She says she mainly had to rely on video footage to come to her conclusion. The autopsy ruled out underlying lung disease. Also ruled out were injuries to the neck, a stroke, there was no aneurysm or embolism, no ruptures to the heart, and no heart attack. She also ruled out fentanyl. She says the drugs were not a high level and were a very low level, therefore an overdose was ruled out. Restraint and subdual cause of death. He had abrasions and scrapes over his left eyebrow and cheek, smaller scrapes on his nose and lips. She says the scrapes on the left shoulder are consistent with George Floyd trying to move to be able to breathe. On the right shoulder there's some bruising and scrapes, but not as much as the left. The left hand near the wrist are handcuff marks and some skin that has been rubbed up by the handcuffs, and same with the right wrist and scraping on the knuckles. There is no evidence to suggest that George Floyd was suffering from any potentially fatal conditions that day. So bear this in mind before we get to the medical examiner. I think it's safe to say that this witness doesn't like the prone position, nor does she think it's safe. I mean, Nelson keeps bringing up the fact that the prone position is used in COVID patients, but that's totally different situations and it's monitored, plus there isn't for police officers sat on someone's back and neck. So the cross-examination, Nelson brings up the weight of George Floyd's heart, which was 540 grams at autopsy. She would say that this was slightly enlarged, but off the top of her head, she can't say how much a normal heart would weigh in someone of George Floyd's size. Nelson suggests, could it possibly be 383 grams? And she says that well could be the average. So discrepancy over how enlarged George's heart was. But she explains there's so many deviations that it could be viewed differently. Like some would say this is a very large enlarged heart, but some wouldn't. The primary cause of an enlarged heart is high blood pressure. We know George had high blood pressure. George Floyd had 90% narrowing of the right coronary artery, and an artery further down also had 75% narrowing, so this isn't good either. So we asked a hypothetical of if someone was found dead and only had heart issues were found. She says that then the death would be due to heart disease. No abrasions or bruising in the neck area at autopsy. Now, this has been a big thing even before this trial started. So there we go. There were no hypoxic changes in George Floyd's brain, but the witness says he died too quickly for that to show up. It has to happen over a period of time. So all that evidence, no bruising on the neck, which you think there would be. I'm not medical in any way, so I don't know how that works. He had an enlarged heart, he had heart disease, bad heart disease, high blood pressure. So now the big one, the medical examiner, the one that everybody has been waiting for. So there were no injuries to the back. He had several injuries to his face, left side, as we know, to the left eyebrow and cheek, cut on the lip, bruise on right shoulder with scrapes, left shoulder abrasion, handcuff marks, and on the index and middle finger knuckles around here, injuries abrasions and lacerations, which are like a blunt force injury. The heart had no previous damage to the heart muscle, narrowing of the left coronary artery, 75%. Right was also narrowed, but he doesn't say by how much, so more emphasis on how diseased George's heart was. No injury to the brain, no injury in the sense that it had been deprived of blood or oxygen. No pills or pill fragments in the stomach contents. He says that George Floyd had a very severe underlying heart disease. So with this and the high blood pressure, it made the heart bigger, which meant it needed more oxygen. The adrenaline would have made the heart work harder. So in his opinion, the law enforcement subdual, restraint and neck compression was more than George could take by virtue of his heart condition. So it contributed. The drug use and heart condition were not the direct cause. So cross-examination. In his opinion, the heart disease, high blood pressure and the drugs contributed to George Floyd's death. The percentage of narrowing in George Floyd's heart had the potential to cause sudden death. No bleeding into the tissues of the neck. From what he saw from the footage, it didn't appear to him that Derek Chauvin's knee would have been able to occlude the carotid artery, but even if it was occluded, there is another one that would still have been able to supply blood to the brain. No bruising to the neck. This witness, so Nelson starts going through transcripts of interviews he had done before the trial, and he told county attorneys on the 26th of May 2020, this is the day of the autopsy, so after that he spoke to county attorneys, and he revealed no physical evidence that George Floyd died of asphyxiation due to the lack of anatomical findings. He also told them that if George Floyd had died at home alone with no evidence of trauma, then he would have ruled his death a fentanyl overdose. He says the placement of Derek Chauvin's knee would not anatomically cut off George Floyd's airway. So what do y'all think of that? It's kind of planted a seed in my brain that George Floyd was in bad shape and he could have probably ended up seriously ill, if not dead, at any moment. So this injury did, this incident, was the final nail in the coffin. He had issues anyway, so going through all that trauma, being put in the prone position, his heart having to work so hard, the drugs, the high blood pressure, and then being held down and put in the prone position for as long as he could. We now know that there were big contributing factors to his death. I'm not excluding what Derek Chauvin did. What Derek Chauvin did was wrong, but Nelson has proved that there were issues going on with George. So there we go. Just one last thing. The issue with Morris Hall will be dealt with on Monday, and the state is expected to rest its case on Monday. So either, depending how long the witnesses go, or whether the judge wants the defence to start their case on Monday afternoon or Tuesday. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, there we go. We've got to the nitty-gritty of it eventually, after all the use of force experts, that we now know what was going on with George and his drug use and his heart problems. So, right, everybody, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Until then, bye for now.